Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
We're under attack.
The Nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Interesting news we have today. There's a lot of interesting news. A lot of which actually involves, again, Trump stuff. But we actually do a breaking news. Alex Jones. Alex Jones probably looking at going to space right now.
I want to go to space.
To try to get away from the $965 million judgment and damages against him. Right now, Alex Jones on the air screaming and crying and I don't know, crapping himself. I don't know what's going on.
And against number one, compensatory damage.
I'm just listening to that real quick.
Fill in both numbers for each plaintiff, then go.
Now remember, I'm in bankruptcy. We got 2 years of appeals.
I'm in bankruptcy.
The money you donate does not go to these people. It goes to fight this fraud, and it goes to stabilize the company. They want us shut down. That's why the ambulance chasers did this, why they use these families. So SaveInfowars.com. We're fighting Goliath. We'll win because of you. SaveInfowars.com. Infowarsstore.com. Double Patriot points. 10% off at $17.76 right now at Infowars Store. But you see, you want somebody to fight for you? I'm doing it, and you see what they do. So you want to fight? That's fine. It's your decision. But that's where we are. That's the whacked out system of the left. Did we hit $1 billion, guys? From
it's a whacked out system from the left. Bro, it's defamation. You defamed those people. It doesn't have anything to do with politics. That's messed up. All right. But anyway, that's Alex Jones. We'll probably do a little bit more, in-depth stuff tomorrow, since that is just like breaking. But why don't we go, to some of the other stories here. Like I said, we've got fun. So why don't we just start out with some of the lawyer drama, as well as Donald Trump trying to get his friends in the Supreme Court, to help him out a little bit, help a brother out. Start with that. I mean, a different story. All right. The great unraveling of the Mar-A-Lago document drama continues, as one of Donald Trump's lawyers, Rena Bob, has thrown the rest of her team under the bus. You love to see it. Former OAN host and attorney for former President Donald Trump, Christina Bobb, reportedly spoke to or with federal investigators last Friday, and worked to, quote unquote, clarify her role in signing a letter declaring Trump had no more documents at his Florida home. Now, of course, we know that was not true. He did have documents. That's why the FBI searched the premises and came away with lots and lots and lots of documents. And so this is after Bob had signed a certified statement on June 3rd, 2 months before the FBI search, and sees 11,000 documents that were wrongly taken to the former president's residence. NBC's Mark Caputo reported that Bob named 2 other Trump attorneys involved with the case. Bob reportedly told investigators that the letter she signed was drafted by none other than Evan Corcoran, who was Trump's lead lawyer at the time. And Evan, under the bus. Oh, there you go. Oh, did that hurt? You just got hit by a bus, son. Not fun. Oh, for you. Now, Bob also spoke to investigators about Trump legal advisor Boris Epshteyn. God, that guy's a clown. Who said she did not help draft the statement, but was minimally involved in discussions about the records, according to sources. Again, not quite under the bus, nudged a little bit more into that direction. You nudge towards the bus. Maybe it'll hit you one of these days. Caputo also reported that according to sources close to Bob, that said she insisted that the letter be written with a disclaimer. Apparently, she would only sign a certification that read that it was based upon the information that has been provided to me. So, like, hey, look, I don't know if this information is trustworthy. That's what they're telling me. Oh, would they lie to me? Yes, maybe they would. Maybe they would. Well, at least, that's her defense. Like, I don't know. I guess they lied to me. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't lie to anybody. I didn't cover for anybody. I was told this, and I was okay, great. Disclaimer. In fact, she had to insist on that disclaimer twice before she signed it, according to one source. Spoke with Bob about what she told investigators. She is, quote, not criminally liable, the source said. What is it, like Bob's mom? Sorry, Mrs. Bob, or whatever. I know it's you. Like, no, she innocent. Very, very not criminally liable. Look, I don't know who it is. But the source said, she's not going to be charged. She is not pointing fingers. She is simply a witness for the truth. Again, I'm taking all of this with a gigantic grain of salt. This is somebody, again, obviously close to Christina Bob. But if there was a disclaimer in the document, and of course, you could prove that fairly easily. And see, again, it could be corroborated that Corcoran had given her the information that would mean a couple of things. Number one, that she was obviously given false information by somebody else, and that she had expected the possibility of that happening. So, in essence, she knew that her boss might be full of shit and was like, I don't know, look, I'll work for you because maybe I'll get paid. Right? Just like all the other lawyers who would get paid, right? Working for Donald Trump. Look, I know that he's very likely going to make me lie. So, disclaimer, please. And number two, this could go back to Corcoran. Now, Corcoran, if he was smart, would likely try to save his own ass by trying to point to someone else. Who would that other person be? Or could it be the person who gave him the orders? Now, who was that? Who could that be? If Corcoran was Donald Trump's lead lawyer at the time, could it have been Donald Trump? We don't know. But if it was Donald Trump and he gave the order, then yes, that's obviously obstruction. Trying to lie to the National Archives to take these documents. Now, the source added this. People made Bob the fall guy, or fall gal. For what it's worth, and it's wrong. Yes, she signed the declaration. No one disputes that. But what she signed is technically accurate. The people who told her to sign it should know better. See, it's not my fault, it's their fault. So, now look, Bob, she could be out of the hot seat. Might not. I mean, according to former Obama attorney Joyce Alene, who noted, I would not buy on the notion that Bob has managed to immunize herself from criminal liability by carefully wording the false statement she signed. There are legal doctrines like willful blindness and other conduct at issue, which could explain why she's talking to federal investigators right now. That said, maybe for the fact that she is talking to federal investigators, there is no legal action being taken against her because she is cooperating, and they might be a little bit more interested now in Evan Corcoran. Last I knew, Corcoran did not hire a lawyer, has not hired a lawyer yet, as far as I know. Look, he had claimed that he didn't need one. Well, I would expect that to change, pretty much. I tell you what, though, nothing turns people against each other like Donald Trump. We've seen it in a bunch of different, times in his administration, and now with his lawyers fighting each other, and even beforehand, where he had to have competition in between his aides. So, a real nice working environment there when it comes to Donald Trump. But I guess we already knew that. Okay. Let's move on. The Biden Justice Department has slammed Donald Trump's plea, specifically the legal team's plea, to get the Supreme Court involved. Yes, he's calling for some backup over Donald Trump's theft of documents from the White House that were later on seized at Mar-a-Lago. Now, in a filing on Tuesday, the Department of Justice argued this: the court should be cautious before insisting upon an examination of records whose disclosure would jeopardize national security, even by the judge alone, in chambers. So now, what is this in response to? Well, Trump's lawyers want the special master to be able to review more than 100 documents that were marked classified, which, again, if it's allowed, well then, the special master is looking at it, then maybe Trump's legal team could start looking at the records, and they could try to make arguments that, certain documents should be off limits to prosecutors when it comes to the DOJ's criminal case against Donald Trump. And I think that's really important to note. All right. And so all of that said, yes, this is basically a way for him to attempt to delay said criminal case until Trump finds some other way to try to easel out of it. I mean, that's kind of what they do, what he does. All right. So now, that said, it's already been to the appeals court, and that's why it went to the Supreme Court. And so I think that's, I guess, what they were hoping for, perhaps, or again, maybe just a desperate plea to find some sort of, friendly court advantage. I don't know how necessarily friendly the Supreme Court will be, at least in this case. Okay. That said, I mean, look, there are 3 Trump appointees on the bench, in addition to 3 additional conservative justices, including one that does have a conflict of interest regarding Trump, but in a different case. And that's January 6th. So you have, Justice Clarence Thomas, his wife, Jeannie Thomas, or Virginia Thomas, very close in that investigation with, concerning January 6th, lots of texts between her and Mark Meadows and others. So, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know how it's going to fall, though, because you have seen the court not take Trump's side on other things, because in reality, I think the court, yes, while I think they will help Trump in some, regards, right? And they're certainly ideologically compatible with Trump, at least for the kinds of policies that he had put forward. But remember, they're also really more loyal to the Federalist Society and their goals, as well as corporations, really, business interests. And so let's take all that into account. Okay, Amy Coney Barrett's more like loyal to, going to listen to her husband because she's weird or cult, but Christian sect. But anyway, I don't know how much help he's going to get. I really don't. That said, at issue are the orders here, 2 orders from a judge that is very, very friendly towards Donald Trump, and that's Aileen Cannon. She had issued 2 orders last month. First, the special master, and then had also temporarily enjoined the Justice Department from using a subset of documents as part of its ongoing criminal probe. Now, Trump's argument is that circuit court, the appeals court, the 11th Circuit specifically, lacks jurisdiction. They say that they can't order a stay considering the special master review. Now, here's the thing. Again, this is a special master that they had requested and received. It's crazy. All right, so now they said that Raymond Dearie, I love the argument, Dearie would be substantially impaired by the appeals court order and that it will slow ongoing time-sensitive work. Now, considering how this entire thing, getting the special master to begin with, is a stall, right? Where they're just trying to buy some time. That's really all it is. I'm in trouble. I'm going to buy some time. Let's get the special master to review it. And now they're making the argument of, oh, if you don't let him look at all these documents now, well then, look, we're just going to, it's going to waste time. You're wasting time. We got to do something good. Quick, let's go. They said, any limit on the comprehensive and transparent review of material seized and the extraordinary raid of a president's home erodes public confidence in our system. No, what they're really doing is that they're trying to keep the documents out of the hands of the DOJ, the criminal division. They want to hide these documents for as long as possible by, again, arguing that, well, they were legally his. He was able to take them. It's just fine. It's fine. He should be able to take them. The whole point, again, of the special master was just to waste time. Again, if they were so concerned about the time-sensitive nature of Dearie's work, then, well, no, not just about Dearie's work, but in anything. If they were worried about anything, then they would have had to ask for a special master to begin with. But in response here, the DOJ writes this. This is U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prager, who immediately went after Judge Cannon and said that she had fundamentally erred in appointing this special master in the first place, and noted that the Justice Department is appealing that decision in lower courts. The DOJ in its filing also noted that the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals found that Cannon abused her discretion and inflicted a serious and unwarranted intrusion on the executive branch's authority to control the use and distribution of extraordinarily sensitive government records. Cannon's decision to block the DOJ's access to documents marked classified and seized from Mar-A-Lago has significantly slowed down the DOJ's ability to work on the case. Delay. We got to keep them from being able to use those documents to build the case against Trump. That doesn't involve really classification. That's not what it's about. It's the Espionage Act. There are 3 different statutes that Trump had allegedly broken. One of them's obstruction, and one of the other ones is very, very serious. It's the Espionage Act. So that's not good at all. Not good at all. So yes, delay. Now, DOJ said that Trump's application to the Supreme Court, quote, concerns an unprecedented order by the district court restricting the executive branch's use of its own highly classified records and an ongoing criminal investigation, and directing the dissemination of those records outside the executive branch for a special master review. There is no reason that he needs to, that they need to see that. There really isn't. So now the big issue here, again, is trying to get the court involved. Likely because Donald Trump and his team, well, at least Donald Trump himself, because he's big on loyalty, says, well, I appointed them. They owe me. They owe me. I made them. Now, of course, he didn't. These are Federalist Society judges that were going to get, no matter who was president, by the way, it's going to get confirmed by the Republicans if they were in control of the Senate. So, again, It doesn't matter that Donald Trump was there. They could have gotten a trained monkey to sign those, to appoint those justices. And of course, Donald Trump, the trainedest monkey of all. Okay. Anyway, but look, as far as Trump is concerned, I'm pretty sure that yes, he wants the Supreme Court to come in and save him. And so far, the court has refused SCOTUS intervention. In fact, he had lost a previous challenge in a case concerning documents related to the House January 6th Select Committee. That's when Justice Clarence Thomas said, oh, you know what? I would have actually ruled in his favor, Donald Trump's favor. Just to show you how, non-biased the court is. Yeah, that's right. I trainedest. The word that I made up. I make words, best words. But look, the whole thing, again, is about Donald Trump wanting to stall by having Deary sit there and pour through documents spanning hundreds, thousands of pages. Now, it is a gamble that allows, or really, it really does show that Trump doesn't seem to have a lot of legal maneuvers available to him when it comes to this case. Just tie up the court the most I can. Wait out the clock. Is it the word? It is a word that is not real. The trainedest. I have words. I have best words. Great words. Okay. Anyway. It was the fuck off of times. It was the find out of times. Apparently. Next story. Okay. A Minnesota man who claimed that Antifa had set his camper on fire, because that's what Antifa does, right? Apparently. Well, no, because he just pleaded guilty to wire fraud and staging an arson. Oops. Now, this 29-year-old Dennis Mola, who claimed that on September 23rd, 2020, 3 Antifa super soldiers had spray painted Biden 2020, BLM, and an Antifa symbol on his garage door and then burned his camper. Because of Trump flag. Yes, because dumb flags are very, very apparently triggering. No. No, because look, this is his made up story. Because there are a lot of red flags here, and I don't mean, again, the Trump flag, which is more of a purple. First, you're gonna try to convince people that Antifa, they're super pro Biden. Really? What's funny about this is that I can only imagine that they want to project themselves so much onto other people. Because they think, oh, I hate Democrats so much. God, I hate the left. I wish I could burn down their campers and spray paint the N-word. I can't do that. Now, it also plays into their massive sense of victimhood, right? Because they always think they're victims about when it comes to anything. Oh, can you believe what that Antifa did? They threw a milkshake once. I'm scared. Now, the third thing that goes along with this story is the grift. After reporting the incident, Mola had filed a $300,000 insurance claim for fire damage to his garage, camper, vehicle, and residence, for the fire that he set himself. Oops. His insurance company, look, insurance companies are going to insurance. And so they're like, no, we're not going to pay for that. And then they did later send him $61,000. So that's insurance fraud right there. Filing these false insurance claims after burning your own stuff. And then Mola had also created and allowed others to create 2 GoFundMe pages for himself and his family, eventually transferring the donated funds to his personal bank account. Both pages are, well, okay, let me show you the GoFundMe here, right? Mola family arson fundraiser, hate crime. Hate crime. Yes. That's one of them. And other ones titled, Help a Family That Is Suffering. Suffering from the thing that I just did to myself. Yes. Through January 2021, the Mole Family Hate Crimes Arson fundraiser raised about $17,836 from 220 donors, according to the archive version. Again, both of those were removed. Okay. Now, that said, I love that he calls it a hate crime. A hate crime. You know what? Actually, we have some video of Mr. Mola, right? Mr. Dennis Mola talking about how he felt about this entire situation.
I am a victim of a hate crime. Stanley knows what I'm talking about.
That's not what a hate crime is.
Well, I hated it.
Obviously, that's not Mr. Dennis Mola from The Office. Great clip, great show. And this guy, obviously not Michael Scott. He is no Michael Scott. I know Michael Scott. But you can understand how you can see how they're so desperate to not only fearmonger about BLM and Antifa, but again, to do insane things to themselves, to victimize themselves in order to blame other people. Now, that said, Chuds are furiously typing, what about Jussie Smollett? Hey, you know what? Jussie Smollett, also a grifter. We agree with that. And we agree that absolutely what he did was wrong and pretty terrible and actually is a setback for the LGBTQ plus community. What is not a setback is burning at your own camper and damaging your house, setting arson and doing insurance fraud, as well as grifting people out of thousands of nearly $20,000 for something that you did to blame Antifa, Joe Biden, whatever. Kind of on a different level. And again, it doesn't actually take away from the fact that MAGA loves their victimhood mentality. Oh, they want to be victims so badly, and they just create these enemies, these situations, just so they can feel victimized. Again, sure, there is some examples as well of on the left as well, or the supposed left. But there's far more examples of this victimhood mentality on the far right. All right. Anyway, there's a war on Christmas. Is there? Well, I hear there's a war for your mind. Is it called Brain War? Info Brain? I don't know. I hear the guy that does that info thing owes a little bit of money. Not doing so well. Very sad. Okay. Let's go to more stuff. Got a voting story. It appears that former supporters of former President Donald Trump have a new enemy: early voting. Now, the Daily Beast Will Sommer wrote on Twitter that he has noticed a trend among Trump supporters. Apparently, they are boycotting early voting. Now, why would you do that? Early voting is kind of a good thing. It's a great thing, actually. And it had been used without controversy for quite some time. What's the issue? Oh, right. some chud made a documentary about it, and now they have scared all the other chuds into thinking that early voting bad. Okay, so let me give you the details on that. So apparently, now right-wingers believe that early voting is a tool that Democrats use to steal the 2020 presidential election. Now, it's an interesting idea emerging from conservative media that Republicans should either vote in person on Election Day or not at all. They think all early voting, even from Republicans, somehow helps Democrats cheat. Somehow. How? That's a good question. How does that let the Democrats cheat if Republicans vote early? Well, NBC News reporter Ben Collins had an idea about this, just a little suggestion, right? They think that the mules, got mules going on here, that are dropping off ballots in the middle of the night. Why in the middle of the night? You would think that would be more conspicuous, right? Like, oh, middle of the night instead of a busy day to ballot drop boxes, which are supposed to receive ballots. That's kind of the whole point. So yeah, they're dropping off ballots in the middle of the night, allegedly. And that, right-wingers think that somehow the mules' votes will count, but the Republican votes won't count, even though ballots are generally sealed. So, interesting. And you know what? It would actually be kind of funny if Republican votes, well, okay, maybe not funny, but maybe it would be nice if Republican votes didn't count. At least at this point, but they do. They do, unfortunately for our country, at this point. But look, this is why you have Republicans that win elections all the time. Their votes do count. So even in places where they have early voting, Republicans win. They never seem to challenge it when Republicans win, but when a Democrat wins, and I'm just talking general elections, when it comes to Republican primaries, well, you do have, losers like Laura Loomer or Laura Loser, who keeps losing primaries, crying about it, claiming, it's voter fraud. It's the fraud. So much fraud because I lost against a Republican. It's just been a catch-all to excuse running shitty campaigns. They don't run good campaigns. And when they don't, they lose. Them's the breaks. That's how the cookie crumbles, guys. Instead, you got to sit there and complain and bitch and whine and allege fraud with no evidence, because we live in a fact-free, evidence-free world now where right-wingers do not have to present anything. And they can just call it fake news. And you say, no, it's not real. It doesn't exist. I have the real evidence, except I can't actually show you. I can't show you any of the proof. I just know it. Deep in the bowels. That's where I have the proof. Oh. Do you know? The voter fraud in the room with you today. You just want to ask some. But look, that said, if we did have an issue where like suddenly every district was going to one candidate at such weird large margins, like you like 97-3 or something like that, or 97-2, and then like 0.1 for someone else. Yeah, that would be weird. I mean, that'd be a little sussy, and then you want to look into it, right? That's what we have, these, situations where you can challenge ballots, where you can recounts, you can do all that stuff. And guess what? That's what we did with all the 2020 election stuff. Recount after recount, investigation after investigation, cyber ninja. You know what they found? Cyber ninjas? They're like, oh, yeah, it turns out the results were accurate. So, but see, understand that here's the thing. Joe Biden barely beat a fascist. That's a really like scary thing. And it's because it seems like half the voting population have just lost their minds and believe in these nonsense conspiracy theories. Those are the same people that are like, no, we are not going to turn out to early vote. We're going to go in person. Okay, great. COVID's on the resurgence, and now COVID is killing more Republicans than anybody else. You sure that's a good idea? Especially, knowing how y'all don't like to wear masks or get vaccines. I mean, it's a free country. Go ahead and make your decisions. Just saying that it might not be very smart. Okay? But no, they cope and seethe. They say, oh, it's the mules. The 2,000 mules. They got the drop boxes, and the mules, and the voter fraud. And again, you want to talk about how this is a desperate, attempt to connect things that really aren't related. And they'll probably connect it to, like, George Soros or something, because they always do. They just tend to do that. Oh, look, we've got the video. People are dropping off ballots. Yeah. Turns out you're allowed to drop off ballots. Yes, even for other people. It is called ballot harvesting. In a lot of places, at least before Republicans banned it, it was legal. But I can see how right-wingers, they would be so afraid of that because, well, that would make voters voting easier for, people who don't have means, people who don't have time to go and vote or to stand in line. People don't, early voting, people who want to get that ballot in as soon as possible so they can get back to their lives, absentee ballots, anything that's mail in. All that stuff helps the working class. It helps people who are, who don't have time. We're working 2 unique American jobs. But their focus is on scary drop boxes and black people voting. That's what they hate the most, black people voting. Now, as far as Dinesh D'Souza is concerned, the one who created this movie that everybody's on the right is, I guess, using as proof positive that their voter fraud claims are valid. No, that guy, he's not okay, sure, he's a filmmaker, right? He just makes fiction to scare right-wingers. That's it. That's really all it is. When Ann Coulter is able to call you a moron and a stupid, you might want to, re-examine your life. And by the way, you're a fellow conservative. And she says that about you. Just saying. But no, look, D'Souza, he's all about trying to scam people out of money. Again, he's somebody who is a pardoned criminal, breaking campaign finance laws. But, if you want to listen to him, great, go ahead. By all means, boycott the polls. Why don't you just boycott voting altogether? So maybe you'll be doing a country a favor. Just saying. All right. Let's go to dumb things that Republicans say. Conservative Dennis Prager is saying bizarre things again. Like, talking about incest for some reason. Take a look.
Either the Bible's right or the left is right. They can't both be right. That's why you can't be a serious Jew or Christian and be a leftist. You can be a liberal, you can be a conservative, but you can't be a leftist. Anyway, none of you have a secular argument against it, and I don't blame you for that because there isn't any. There's no secular argument against adult incest. Brother and sister want to make love. What's your argument? That they're going to produce mentally retarded offspring? It's nonsense. It takes many generations of inbreeding to do that. There is no secular argument against adult consensual incest. There's a religious argument. Sex cannot enter family life. It's a big taboo. See, people think that we could live without the greatest source of wisdom and morality in the history of the world, the Bible. That's what they think. Even some secular conservatives think that. They don't realize they're living on the fumes of the Judeo-Christian value system.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot of words from Dennis Prager. All right. So let's break it down. The ridiculousness. There's no secular argument against incest. Oh, really? Why is this suddenly an issue? I just have to ask this. Why bring it up? Is there some sort of incest crisis going on in this country that I was not aware of? Is this something that's really important? You know, in the scope of world events? Is this a pressing issue, Dennis? What makes you gravitate towards talking about these subjects and bringing this up and making those arguments? I just don't understand. I will never understand this person. Why? So, but anyway, let's analyze it. All right. So, leftism and the Bible incompatible, apparently, according to Dennis Prager. How so? So what's secularism, right? Because that's what he equates the left with, secularism. And by the way, secularists, I got news for you. They're not just people on the left. There are, I would say more libertarian, but I guess you could call them, conservative, people who believe in secularism. And really all that is, and unfortunately it's been taken over by the Christian nationalism in the Republican Party. I think over half of now Republicans, basically describe themselves as Christian nationalists, which is insane because what they're trying to do is to say, no, we believe that our fundamentalist religion should be part of the government, should be the government in the state, or I'm sorry, the government and the church should be the same. The church should be the state should run the church. And so that's messed up. But okay, secularism though, if you believe in secularism, you would know that it is not the absence of religion. It just means the absence of religion when it comes to government. So religion itself is going to be just fine. Again, you don't want, the government to, the religion to the church to run the state, but you also don't want the state to run the church. That's why we have a separation, a wall, if you will. I know you look, right-wingers, you love walls, right? You're always talking about building walls. Well, we got a wall between church and state, which you seem to love to try to knock down all the time. No, we have that wall for a reason. And so look, if you leave them separate, government's going to be just fine. Religion's going to be just fine. But he's making the argument that no, you can't have a society without an official religion ruling over it. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, you can. You can have a secular society with a bunch of religious people in it. In fact, that's what we've had for a long time. But he says that if you have that, well, people are going to do whatever horrible things that they want, whether it be, rape, murder, incest, etc. They're going to do that because, well, why not? They're not afraid of angering God. Well, there is a thing such as laws, right? And yet, funny how most of the country, and I'm talking the United States here, well, Christian, right? Well, it just so happens the majority of criminals in this country, people that do bad things, rapes, murders, etc., happen to be Christian. Weird. Oh, now, look, that's not because Christianity is inherently criminal. I'm not making that argument. That's the kind of bullshit argument that you would hear from right-wingers, for example, when they talk about other religions than Christianity. Mostly Islam. All right? But look, it's because if you have a majority of a country where the majority of the people are of one certain religion, then the majority of the people who are criminals are going to come from that religion simply because there's just more of them. It's simple mathematics. Not good arguments. These are very, very poor, bad faith arguments from Dennis Prager. But let's go to finally the incest argument. We're going to talk about incest.
Sexual anarchy.
All right. So Prager is saying, look, you have to have a religion because that's the only preventative from people fucking their sisters. I'm like, he's making that argument. I'm not making that argument. He's making that argument. What are you doing? Like, that's the thing, though. Why would you make that argument? It doesn't make any sense. And so, look, here's the thing. Religious people have, religious people have done incest. I mean, let's talk about Rudy Giuliani. He marry his first cousin? I mean, seriously, though, history is also filled with monarchs that keep it in the family. Now, why did they do that? Well, there's a couple of different reasons, right? Mostly wanted to protect their own wealth, of course, keeping it real. But I'm guessing that some of them believed in this weird sort of keeping their blood pure kind of thing. And now it feels like we're talking like a House of the Dragon or a, Game of Thrones episode. But really, I mean, they've made that argument. And by the way, it's not just, Christians. It's, monarchs, leaders in lots of different places all over the world would practice this. Leaders, because they believe that their blood was part or had been descended from like gods or God or religious figures when it comes to Christianity, religious figures in the Bible, right? I think, I forget exactly which the British crown believes that it's descended from, but they do believe in that divine right. And so, yeah, back in, in the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, where religion ran everything, by the way, you had a lot of sexual relationships, marriages, etc. So, I mean, weird stuff. Now, there's another thing, of course, that contradicts him, and that's science. I mean, let me get back to the quote that he said here, okay? What was it? Yeah, the casual ableism part. What's your argument that they're going to produce mentally, the Arsler offspring? That's nonsense. It takes many generations of inbreeding to do that. Okay, well, again, there's some truth and there's a lot of not truth. So the one thing that he, gets right is, yes, long periods of time, there are genetic changes as a result of incest that, I can't believe I'm talking about this. But again, this is the world that we live in. But those that are incredibly detrimental, harmful, usually take a few generations to show up, right? So, okay, he's right about that. But there's another thing that he neglects to mention, and that's the risk of birth defects that are much higher in those types of relationships. Now, some defects, not necessarily harmful, like blue eyes, right? From both parents' recessive genes. Okay, that's a harmless one, but there's also very harmful ones. And by the way, it's not just you get one and then the others don't happen. No, you can get a lot of these things in conjunction, like developmental disorders, cystic fibrosis, premature birth, cleft palate, heart conditions, and of course, just death. Many, many, many things, many terrible things that can come from these pairings. So those are good scientific reasons not to do so. And hey, guess what? Secularists, we believe in science, right? The other reason, of course, is why would you do that? Why? Why? No normal people think about that. No normal people think, oh yeah, I'm going to pair up with my sister, first cousin, whatever, right? No, no. Why would you want to do that? And look, I know he talked about, okay, so he puts out a straw man of like, oh, the people that are brother and sister consensual having these relationships. Again, he was probably watching Game of Thrones. That's the only situation like that I could see. Other than that, I mean, this does not seem to be a widespread phenomenon. But most of the times where you have incest, right? It's usually the product of molestation, which is not consensual at all. It is a crime. It is a violation of an innocent person. There's nothing consensual there at all. You don't need a religious argument to be against any of this. What Dennis Prager seems to avoid doing is pointing out how people don't need this religious doctrine, you know, the threat of eternal punishment, damnation, etc., burning in hellfire for the rest of your life, etc. I know he's Jewish, but that's the Christian faith, right? Which he seems to like cape for a lot. You don't need any of that to be a good, decent human being. So look, the fact that they seem to believe this, it does say a lot, you know, about the people that are making these arguments. Look, me personally, and again, I think 99% of the people don't need a threat of, you know, the divine threat of damnation to not rape and murder and pillage your way across the earth. Okay? Because it's wrong. Because it hurts people. I don't believe in raping and pillaging and murdering, right? No, I've never had that inclination. And I'm really worried when people say, well, gee, I would do that if it weren't for the Bible. Maybe you're not that good of a person to begin with if you're thinking about that. Making that argument. But and by the way, again, this is just another weirdo bad faith argument from a bad faith actor trying to, you know, claim that you cannot be a person of faith. And even though I'm not, I know plenty of people who consider themselves to be on the left who do have faith and happen to be more in line with the actual religious teachings of Jesus than anyone like Dennis Prager. Let's go to one more story, and it's unfortunately depressing. On Wednesday, the Miami Herald reported on the story of Craig Ridley. So now this story actually happened about 5 years ago, but once you realize what had happened and why you hadn't heard of this story, you'll begin to understand. So now Craig Ridley was a 62-year-old prisoner that was being held in Florida. And Ridley had been assaulted by police officers so much that his neck had been broken by the guards, and he was unfortunately left to die in his cell. Now, Ridley, according to the report, was lying in his bunk paralyzed, his neck dislocated, a catastrophic injury suffered after corrections officers tackled him to the ground face first on September 8th, 2017. According to a report from Nicholas Nahamis, I want to give him credit. Nahamis. A little more than a month later, would be dead, writes Nahamis, having been manhandled, mocked, and ignored by prison staff, even as he begged for help. My neck is broke, Ridley says, according to video taken by officers shortly after his injury and obtained by the Miami Herald. I'm paralyzed. Now, okay, look, obviously there's a lot of things already wrong on this. So they tackled him so hard that they broke his neck. Now, immediately, that should have been like, oh my God, we got to get the ambulance in here, right? We got to get this person to a doctor, to the hospital. No, didn't happen. They kept him in there for a month. Now, instead of calling for a backboard, officers at the scene of his injury had forced Ridley into a wheelchair. He drooped forward awkwardly, crying out in pain, as you would from a neck injury. A prison nurse disregarded his complaints during a brief exam. One officer reportedly told him, quote, "You ain't paralyzed. You ain't paralyzed." Sounds a lot like George Floyd when the officer was kneeling on his neck. He said, "I can't breathe." Or there was another story where it was Eric Garner. "I can't breathe. I can't breathe." And the officer reportedly said, "Fuck your breath." Same kind of callous indifference to human life and suffering. And now officers put Ridley in a confinement cell, positioning him on a toilet, where when he was unable to balance, he fell on the cement floor, face first, leaving a pool of blood. Once more, prison medical staff came around and said, "You're fine. Oh, he's fine. He's faking it. Whatever. He'll be all right." Bleeding from your face after just taking a gigantic spill on the hard concrete, you're fine. He's fine. But don't listen to him. You know what that says to me? How they don't, again, the indifference here. The indifference to suffering. But understand, this is what the U.S. carceral system does to people. Dehumanizes them. Takes away their humanity as well as their freedom. And it treats them as if they're not even people. They're less than human, subhuman. It's disgusting, right? And as far as humanity is concerned, the fellow inmates had way more humanity for this man than the prison guards did. According to the report, his blockmates had begged guards to get him medical attention as he lay in a cell, unable to walk and starving because he couldn't even reach the food that he was being given. So, look, imagine, if you will, being in a cell next to him. You're watching a man starve to death because he's in the cell next to you. You can't get out. You're in a prison cell. You're just going to watch a guy die because you can't do anything. The helplessness. You don't think people are going to come out of that mentally scarred? It's a house of horrors. But they think, and this is unfortunately what, again, a lot of people think when it comes to our carceral system, that, oh, well, we don't care. They're not people anyway. They did something wrong. They did a crime. They hurt somebody. They stole property. And yeah, some people have murdered people. Of course, not discounting that. Some people have done horrible crimes. Doesn't mean we need to treat them this way and torture them, because that's what this is. This is torture. This is not a humane system. We're supposed to have a humane system that should be set up for, number one, rehabilitation. And number two, yes, if there are dangerous people that cannot be rehabilitated, to try to segregate them from society so that they don't harm someone else. But this is not this is not the kind of system that we have today. No, we have a horrifying system. Now, that said, more details. After about 5 days of this man being paralyzed, guards finally took him to a hospital where he had died on October 12th, 5 years ago today. 5 years ago. Again, this is an old story. Why are we hearing about it now? Why didn't we know about this sooner? Well, look, we know why. The prison system covered it up. According to the report, the story was kept hush for years because of the Florida systems. They say the lack of transparency. I also believe that it's, yes, trying to cover up their crime. It's a fancy way of saying it's a cover up because we let someone die. We tortured this man to death for whatever crime he did. The report said after suffering through the strain of the pandemic, Florida's beleaguered prison system is stuck in a worsening crisis that could produce more cases like Ridley's. Florida prisons have only 76% of the employees they need, with a statewide shortage of nearly 4,000 officers. So now, look, I read that, and it's just like, they're trying to make a case like, give us more money. Well, that's not going to solve the problem. We should maybe stop locking up so many people. I mean, that would be my solution, and don't not lock up people for nonviolent offenses. Simple. Especially when it comes to nonviolent drug offenses. But anyway, the report also added, the situation has grown so alarming that Governor Ron DeSantis is activating Florida's National Guard to help staff state prisons because, nothing will come out of that one. Nothing bad will come out of that. Where roughly 450 incarcerated people die every year. I wonder why. Many pass away from natural causes thanks to the state's long sentences and aging inmate population. Some die young because of illicit drugs, others by suicides, and most result in an autopsy, a rudimentary report, and not much else. Look, again, the report here, yes, it did expose cover-ups and deaths like Ridley's. No doubt, and that's a good thing that we know this had happened. Whether it's going to lead to any sort of punitive action, doubt it, unfortunately. Because again, the people in prison are not treated as if they're human beings. But again, they're also making the cases of, poor, prisoners and poor prisons. We need more staff. We need more money. We need more of this stuff. Not actually a reformation when it comes to our criminal justice system and actually trying to, strike at the root causes of poverty. Root causes of crime, which again, one of them happens to be poverty. Others, etc. So, look, that's because, again, this situation is why, is how, a good example of the fact that prisons do not treat people as human. They don't care. If you've committed a crime, it's lock you up, throw away the key. Take your freedom, take your humanity, and in some cases, your life. We have an incredibly horrible, punitive, as well as torturous, barbaric prison system in this country. And it has to be changed massively. You got to do something. Draconian, that's a great word. Nonviolent criminals do not belong behind bars. I agree with that. Okay. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Really, really appreciate it. Let me see if there are any. Yes, Monty Darno, thank you for the super chat with a hearty fuck Alex Jones.
It's the devil, okay? It is an alien force, not of this world.
Yes, that's what happened. That's what happened.
We're under attack.
All right. Let's see. Anything on Twitch here? I'm sure there is, because I'm seeing a lot of Twitch comments. Got to, get in on that. I appreciate all the new follows. Thank you. So welcome. All right. let's raid, by the way. We'll do a Swifts raid. The Swifts. Everybody else, thank you for going on the Nation with me today. Love you all. Have a great evening. See you back here tomorrow. Love you all, and remember, change begins with you. Good night.
We have to keep our country gay.
I will eat your ass.
Amazing.
Disappointed!
Go for it, kids. Come at me.
Well, I do not consent. I apologize for nothing. I concede nothing.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.